Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be taking a look at this album by Belle and Sebastian. It is If You're Feeling Sinister. So yes, I'll just be doing my usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this was the band's second album, released on the 18th of November 1996. So the debut album, Tiger Milk, was a rather rushed affair, like rushed recorded, rushed released like earlier like that year, like in February of 1996, and I guess it's quite a fascinating story, like how like they came to record that album, which I think I'll perhaps save for like another day, like a review like of like that album. But essentially that album like was like released like released like under very limited quantity, like of like around 1,000 pressings, like that, like a very small Glasgow label called Electric Honey. So that album was rather warmly received like by like the people like lucky enough to hear it like at like the time. Like so like the band like was like approached by a number of record labels. However, like some of like these labels like were put off like by some of like the group's like demands, like which included retaining absolute artistic control like over their material, not releasing any singles, or doing and also doing very little promotional activities for their albums, like including playing live. So they were eventually signed up to a label called Jeepster Records, I believe, a small like independent label based like in Scotland, like at like the time, and yeah, this album then came together relatively quickly, it was recorded like in the same studios that Tiger Milk like was recorded in, Cava Studios in Glasgow, using Tony Dugan, who was an engineer like on Tiger Milk, like as the producer like on this album. So yeah, it came together very quickly. Only took 5 days like to like record and mix the album. So the album is today widely regarded as Belle and Sebastian's like finest like work, like with like leader Stuart Murdoch saying that he feels that this is his best collection of songs, and Pitchfork magazine ranked it at number 14 on its 100 greatest albums of the 90s list. But unfortunately, upon its release, like at like the time, it kind of passed like a lot of like the general public by. Like it only charted at number 191 here in the UK. However, following this album, the band's reputation and recognition like would grow, like to the point that like by the time that they released the follow-up, The Boy with the Arab Strap, they were they had like a top 20 album and like a Brit nomination like for best new band, but I think all that was very much set in stone because of how great this album is. So I will just show you my vinyl copy of it here. This is just a reissue of it here. So there's a cover, very kind of Smithsy cover, I have to say. Taking like a lot of influence from like kind of the Smiths artwork, and then you've got the lyrics on the back, and this gatefold picture here, which I think most people would assume this is the band, but I don't think it is, or like I'm not 100% sure, because I read that around this time they used actors in like their publicity like photos, like it wasn't them, so I won't be surprised if this isn't them. I don't think it is. I can't see Murdoch anywhere like on here, Stuart Murdoch. But yeah, I could be wrong. But anyway, the record is just in a plain sleeve, and it looks like this. So yeah, as I said, this is just a recent reissue of it here. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album songs. I will score each track out of 10, and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Stars of track and field are beautiful people. Okay, so the album kicks off with a song as The Stars of Track and Field. Now, I think this is a brilliant album opener. I just love the way it starts really quietly, just with a very quiet, softly strummed acoustic guitar, and Murdoch's very kind of, calm and sort of like very kind of fragile sounding like vocal. But then just the way the song then like evolves like through both like the instrumentation, slowly adding in like pianos and drums, and then like trumpets and like a whole like array like of like different like instruments, and then like kind of Murdoch's delivery gradually becoming like a bit more powerful like as like the song like goes on, and then by the end it's kind of almost a bit Velvet Underground-y with these kind of sort of like very incessant like guitar parts, and like this like it's slightly unsettling kind of feel to it, but I think it's really 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 great. In terms of its lyrics, I think it's perhaps about imagining yourself, like, or like kind of like the narrator, like kind of like getting with like a kind of like a female athlete, like who like he describes like athletes and stars of track and field are beautiful people, and then and like other lines like you're a honey with a following of innocent boys, they never know it because you never show it, you always get your way. But I guess it could be also just more generally about romanticising about being part of a group that you don't sort of like belong to and that. But I really think it is a great song, this, and a great way to kick off the album. So for me, yeah, Stars of Track and Field would get a 10 out of 10.
Seeing other people at least, that's what we say we're doing.
Next up is Seeing Other People, and this is again a really good song. This one here, quite a light sort of bouncy sort of like track with a kind of like nice pleasing piano part. So lyrically, it's about kind of sort of like casual like relationships. He sings it like kissing just for practice. Could we please be objective? Because the other boys are queuing up behind us. It reminds me musically a little bit like of like the Kinks. This one here, and I suppose that kind of like through like it's kind of like it's like piano and like kind of like the whimsical kind of feel like of like the song reminds me something of say like the Village Green Preservation Society album. But and I suppose that's maybe not like a kind of like that kind of like a coincidence. So like both like Davies and Murdoch both kind of write in a quite like an observational style like of like songwriting, like with like in like the case like Stuart Murdoch, he spent most of his 20s suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome and kind of taking in the world like as like an outsider. So it's sort of like that's how you get like these kind of like these observational like these kind of like these story songs like with like a real good sense of narrative like within them. So yeah, I think this is again another great song, and for me we get a 9 out of 10.
He doesn't understand and he doesn't try. He knows there's something missing and he knows.
Next up is Me and the Major. This is a really good one, really a bit more of a, I guess you would almost call it like a rocker, but it's not really. It's just got a bit more like of like a kind of like an upbeat feel to it. Lyrically about kind of like generational differences, and it kind of begins with it begins like quite like with promise. He sings on it like, me and the Major, we could become close friends because we get on the same train and he wants to talk to me. But then like by like the end of like the song, like it's like there's but like then like it's like then that says like there's too much history, too much biography between us, which I think is a great line. And then by the end of the song, like the narrator just he sings like he just wants to dance. I want to drink the whiskey, so I'll forget the Major and go up to town. I think the song's great. It packs a lot into it lyrically, and musically it's really good. You've got this propulsive harmonica which kind of goes like throughout the song, and it fits the kind of frantic pace like off like the track. It's a bit Bob Dylan-y this one, but again, I hear like a lot like the Kinks like in this one. Could imagine this track slotting right into like the Arthur album, like both like in terms of like it's kind of like its military theme, like as well as like it's kind of like its musical style. So yeah, Me and the Major, really great song for me. A 10 out of 10.
On your own, if they follow you.
Next up is called Like Dylan in the Movies. Now this is another classic track for me. Begins with a propulsive bass line which kind of underpins like the whole song, and lyrically again a bit unsettling. This one, it's about like I've read that like the band took inspiration from Kelvin Grove Park like in Glasgow, which at the time, and I think it probably still is like to this day, like notorious for kind of like at night, so like suspicious kind of characters emerging like at night, and like kind of like the first the first line of this kind of sets the scene, take a tip from me and don't go through the park when you're on your own, it's a long walk home, and then if they follow you, it's not your money that they're after, boy, it's you. And just here musically, it's really great. You've got some fantastic guitar playing on there, some great electric guitar playing, and I love how it kind of the way the song was resolves at the end. These kind of these subtle strings come in, and then you've got, I think, some chimes or a triangle as well. It just has a real kind of magical sound to it, very kind of great kind of chamber pop feel to it. So yeah, for me, another great song here, like Dylan in the movies, would get another 10 out of 10.
Before you hang a right and disappear.
Okay, and then a pretty flawless side one comes to a close with Fox in the Snow, which is a really nice bare kind of piano ballad, this one here. I like the structure of this one. It's basically 4 verses, each one looking at a kind of different character. In the snow, you've got a fox, a girl, and then a boy, and then it's and then but each one is kind of alone, and desolate, kind of living their lives without much joy. It's a lovely poetic piece, I think, and a really delicate song. Nice acoustic guitar playing on there as well, towards the end. So yeah, for me, another really, really, really great track. Another 10 out of 10.
Oh, get me away from here, I'm dying. Play me a song.
Next up is Get Me Away From Here, I'm Dying. Now, this is one of the more highly regarded songs on the album, and while I think it is a great track, for me, it isn't one of my personal favourites, on the album, but I'm still giving it a 9 out of 10 because it is still a great song, and I think on any lesser album, or even to be fair, any other Belle and Sebastian album, this song probably would be the runaway highlight. For me, it's maybe just a bit too referential, in the lyrics. He sings play me a song to set me free. Nobody writes them like they used to, so it might as well be me. And then other lines kind of inspired I think by something their manager said with our winning smiles and us, with our catchy tunes and us, now we're photogenic, we don't stand a chance. So it's kind of about the band and about how they kind of came to be and that sort of thing. But I tend to prefer, I guess, the songs on the album with a bit more fantasy to them, a bit more imagination to them. But this is still a great song. It is still a good track. Very good musical arrangement to it. A really good kind of bouncy kind of toe tapping feel to it. And yeah, another great song. So yeah, Get Me Away From Here, I'm Dying would get a 9 out of 10.
But if you are feeling sinister, go up and see a minister. He'll try.
Okay, next track up on the album is the title track, If You're Feeling Sinister, which is another really, really great song. I like how, this one begins with a kind of sounds off a school playground, which gives it a slightly, I guess, sinister kind of feel to it a little bit. Well, certainly when you consider kind of the lyrical kind of themes in this song. Essentially, within the track, we're introduced to 2 characters Anthony and Hillary, who it says both walked to their deaths. But in the case of Hillary, it says that it kind of sort of says it could have been different if she kind of gone to see a church minister who will try in vain to take away the pain of being a hopeless unbeliever, it says. And apparently I think Murdoch was a kind of a religious guy, he went to church and that, but this song is very much kind of I guess sort of saying that the church ultimately won't be able to solve all of your kind of your issues, because at the end it says chances are you'll probably feel better if you stayed and played with yourself. So yeah, a great song, a great piece of songwriting there for me, and that one would get a 10 out of 10.
Mayfly woken up when skies appear. I don't mind you.
Next one, we pick up the pace a little bit with Mayfly, which I guess some people could say is one of the slightly more fillery songs on the album. It certainly doesn't get talked about as much as some of the others, but it is a track I do rather like. I think it has got a really good, easygoing kind of summery feel to it. You've got this kind of bright organ on there and nice lyrics like Mayfly, woken up with the skies blue. I don't mind the sight of you. Keep me company. keep me company till she comes around. And I just like the music like on it. You've got this kind of saxophone solo, which is a bit like an unexpected move, and just adds to the sense of variety like on like this album. So I do really like this one, Mayfly, and it would get a 9 out of 10. Okay, penultimate track is called The Boy Done Wrong Again. Now, this is possibly my least favourite, like, on the album. It certainly is, probably, like, along with Fox in the Snow, like, kind of like the slowest track, like, on here. But I do think it's maybe, on this track, verges a little bit too much into, like, the kind of twee and slightly whiny kind of, like, lyrics on it. He kind of sings, like, the first line is, like, hang your head in shame, and cry your life away, goes like the first line. And then, by the end, it's like, and all I wanted was to sing the saddest songs, and if you would sing along, I will be happy now. So very, I don't say basic lyrically, but a little bit less imaginative as some of like the other tracks like on the album, and musically as well, quite a straightforward like acoustic track, but it's still really good. It's still not one I would ever skip, so I would give it a 7 out of 10 overall, therefore, The Boy Done Wrong Again.
Judy, I don't know you if you're gonna show me everything.
Okay, and then we close the album with potentially my favourite, which is Judy and the Dream of Horses. Now, this is a brilliant album closer. It's almost like everything I could possibly want, like in like an album closer. The way it builds up, starts off very quiet, like again, really just Murdoch, like, and like his like acoustic guitar. Then we get some recorders coming in, and then kind of like that kind of got like the halfway point. I think it changes key, or like the like modulate up to like the major key, and it just becomes really like euphoric sounding, and the guitars sort of like become a lot more frantic, almost punky like by Belle and Sebastian standards, and yeah, I just really like it. And lyrically, about a kind of like a misfit girl, she's described in it like she's described like in this song like as like a teenage rebel who gave her life to books and learning, and like I really like the line that Judy never felt so good except when she was sleeping. Yeah, possibly my favourite like on like the album, just a really kind of again, it has that kind of like a whimsical feel to it, that kind of like this kind of slightly twee, but I just really love it, and I think it really works well like on this track, and like by the end, it's just I like almost wish it was a bit longer, you know, like they kind of kept it going a little bit, but yeah, a great track here though for me, and yeah, a 10 out of 10 for Judy and the Dream of Horses.
The dream of horses.
Okay, so overall this album would score 94%, so I think this is a truly timeless album. I think it is a real blend of a lot of different musical influences. It has to be said, you've kind of got 60s influences there, the likes of Bob Dylan, Simon & Garfunkel, a little bit of like the Velvet Underground as well. And then a kind of 80s kind of like C86 like aesthetic, a bit of the Smiths, and kind of like that kind of like that sort of feel to it. And I think those influences teamed with the quite simple songwriting, like on like the surface, and like all these songs are kind of very few chords, but and like use very organic like instruments on here. Like there's not a synthesizer in sight like on like this album, and I think it's just the combination like of Murdoch's very classic songwriting and like timeless songwriting, like with like again these timeless like arrangements, like organic instruments, which I think create this kind of this magic like about like this album. Now, in preparing for this review, I did read a lot of reviews which said that which kind of criticised this album for its production, feeling that it was far from perfect, and that it was, and that like people actually preferred like a live recording they did like of the album some years later. But I think that's a load of rubbish. I think this album it sounds really great, and I think it's great that the songs aren't overworked like by any means, and I think it's and I don't say like it lacks polish, but it has this kind of like this DIY like aesthetic to it. This is still a new band, like they recorded it in 5 days in like a kind of like a very basic kind of studio like in Glasgow, but I think that gives the album a lot of charm to it. And then we're on to things like the musical variety as well. No two songs on here for me really sound the same. Like every track has got a slightly different kind of quirk to it, so I really rate this album, and I'm like very glad to have picked it up like a couple of months back. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed my review of it here, like of Belle and Sebastian's If You're Feeling Sinister. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.
Pure easy listening, settle down on the pillow soft.